Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Tea Time with Emerging Markets. Today, our distinguished speaker is Biru Paul, who will be talking about his original native country, Bangladesh, in the Leaders in Emerging Markets class. So, without further ado, please.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have Biru here. He served as the as an associate teacher for SUNY University, where he got his PhD. He was also a chief economist in the Bangladesh Bank and Central Bank, 2015-2016. Written several topics in free market banking, growth acceleration, amongst other in the South Asia region. Also, he's known by his recent publication about the growth story of Bangladesh and its challenges. So please welcome here Biru Pasha.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pankit Shah, and I was just wondering, you mentioned it was your dream to advise policy, especially when you were even when you were younger. Can you talk a little bit more about what was your inspiration for that dream and why it was your dream?
Thank you, Lourdes, for inviting me at Emerging Market Institute at Cornell, and thanks all of you. Actually, when I started teaching at Cortland, SUNY Cortland, then I thought that only teaching does not work. Only teaching or only theoretical knowledge is not enough to help a person to grow overall ideas. So I was very passionate to work at a practical level. So I started going to the central bank. It is much before then I was really appointed as chief economist. So I trained their research division, and gradually I built a very good reputation with the bank. And once upon a time when the position was vacant, so I applied, they interviewed me and they took me. And at the same time, I'm not a pure academic person, so I started after doing my master's from Bangladesh. I entered a bank, the first private bank of Bangladesh is called Arab Bangladesh Bank. And then I like banking, but I didn't like its longer hours. So I left banking and then joined as an in a newspaper, leading Bengali newspaper as economic editorial page. After that, I migrated to Australia, did my MBA, and then I again joined bank, but with a different role. It's a financial planning at ANZ, Australia New Zealand Bank. After that, I again did not like the bank. Then I pursued to do my PhD from Binghamton University. I did it. After that, coincidentally, under the same umbrella, State University of New York, I got there. So I already developed from my starting period after my academic life that I want to work, I want to do some shuttle, moving back, coming forth, and then giving knowledge and sharing knowledge with my students. And then after a few years, I'll go to another place. And then, so policy making was part of my dream because I thought about Bangladesh, I wrote about them when I was economic editor of a newspaper. So I was at the hub of all attention and something like that. So everything made me, and also I thank my department who actually allowed me to go for more than 2 years.
So, speaking a little bit, going a little bit more into detail about Bangladesh, its history as well. There's opportunity to improve in terms of aligning the interests of politicians with the well-being of its citizens. Right now, politicians, their interests might be a little short-term, which isn't as impactful for the rest of the economy. Is there a way where you can see the regime having more long-term interests, which aligns more with the well-being of its economy?
Okay, to make it clear, we have to draw a very clear line between the central bank and the government. Actually, most developing economies, the government think that central bank is their money printing office. Actually, that's not true. So they need to give independence. That is a problem. So when I entered central bank, after a couple of months, I noticed that government has a separate interest rate on saving instruments. And that interest rate is high, much higher than the market. On the other hand, there are 60 other banks, they're fighting each other to lower the interest rate because this market is competitive. Only thing is, if the government exercises distortion, other interest rates are not in place, actually the right place that should reflect the market. So I said, okay, central bank should have the sole authority to determine interest rate, no one else. Actually, people, actually regime did not take it very easily. They thought that is something challenging. Actually not, this for their good. What happened, people gravitated toward government instruments, and they are trying to take funds from private banks. So funds were drying out. That was a problem, and it is still continuing. But the government maintains higher rate because, in the name of poor, actually they open the saving instrument. But actually, rich and super rich actually take the benefits, and they are very powerful, and they have strong lobby. They can be secretaries, they are retired military personnel, and rich people, businessmen. So they don't allow government to lower the interest rate. I think this is a huge mismatch in Bangladesh. But when in India, Raghuram Rajan went to India, Raghuram Rajan rationalized this, and he said there should be the only policy that the interest rate should be determined by long-term bond rate, say for 5-year or 10-year bond rate, and government can give just 1% margin on top of that. In Bangladesh, long-term bond rate is say 6%, but the government is offering 11% on the instrument. So it is totally out of market, and it is disturbing capital market or other things. So I am consistently writing, and at some point I believe many people in power are very displeased for the writing.
What is the inflation rate in Bangladesh?
Inflation is moderate, around 5% now.
Okay.
It is low. Even in India, it is, I think, near 4% or below, something like that. And Bangladesh and India inflation actually are almost, the inflation figures are pretty close because of trade channels and other things. And we share many things like policy making, culture,
So,
history.
so it will be very good to invest in savings account in Bangladesh right now, given the markets that are a little bit unsettled. Today again, Dow Jones going down, so it's a good investment. 6%.
Yeah, government
plus
will not.
inflation 5%.
Government will not let others invest there. Government will let only local people. So it's
Okay.
another dichotomy of policy. But I believe that has a long-term bad impact unless the government corrects. So finance minister tells many times, I'll correct it, because he understands. But the pressure from other ministers, and particularly from prime minister, goes for vote. Particularly the election is coming December. So prime minister will not displease the people, particularly who are very powerful. You see, it's a power game to some extent.
In that same route, about the banks and institution and micro policies, you recently published The Growth Story of Bangladesh and Its Challenges. It's more towards the investment side, the economic growth. Can you please touch upon that, and how is that affecting the markets and globally and in Bangladesh as well?
Okay, actually, based on my entire experiences in Bangladesh, I have started writing a book, and it is going to be printed in December. It is called Empowering Economic Growth for Bangladesh: Institutions, Macro Policies, and Investment Strategies. So there I highlighted that if institutions are not streamlined, means if institutions do not work like a concert, you see, it's like musical concert. You cannot just play something totally different. Then the country will have some problem. One example, usually if you look at Keynes' saving investment gap, we usually find that saving is low in developing economies, investment is high because they can borrow from outside. In Bangladesh, surprisingly, saving rate has gone up because of the government instrument is encouraging more saving than investment. It is 31% and investment is 30%. So it's a weird situation which we can see in Japan. So a poor man's rich man's disease. So poor man is attacked by rich man's disease. It's a very premature Japan we can see in Bangladesh. So This is something I was telling for long, that you have to reduce the interest rate or give it to the market, and then market will determine the interest rate, because we believe in the market economy. At the same time, you are administering your interest rate. So this is very contradictory. I say policy should be consistent, simply as simple as that. If you have consistent policy, your economy will grow, and that has we have more seen that in India, of course. So they started liberalization at the same time, early 90s, but they are having higher growth because wherever they find some inconsistencies, they correct it. In our case, like Raghuram Rajan was very powerful. He could do that, but it is not happening from Arijit Patel, and he's under pressure. So it's a matter of sometimes one person can change a country.
I just have one question. If you say that the government is keeping high interest rates, what is the primary reason for a country like Bangladesh to put that in place in the first place, considering India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan have similar policies apart from Bangladesh in terms of government investment interests? And the second one is, how open is Bangladesh to international investments for developing its economy?
Okay. To address your first question is that when government has deficit, because government earns, say, for example, $74, and government has to spend $100, like this is our budget. So where will that $26 come? To do the deficit financing, government has to get some money from people. That is why government is getting cheap money, but it is not cheap money. In the long run, you have to pay the interest back. So that is why I am telling the government taking it just to do deficit financing. It's a short-term measure, but in the long run, it is bad. And you are telling about international. Yes, Bangladesh is open, and gradually the regime understand that we have to be open. We have taken the policies of globalization. Still, it is lagging behind, much behind in business, doing business index. But the government and the regime is willing. I believe after the election, new policies will come to open the market further.
Just as we were speaking during lunchtime, we were saying that actually Bangladesh falls between the cracks because has the huge India as a neighbor, of course Pakistan another neighbor, not geographically neighbor, but okay, very very close. And then so we hear so much about Pakistan because of different reasons, so much about Indian economy, and Bangladesh that has been a jewel in terms of growth, stability. We have not heard much about it. So can you say a little bit, a few words about the good of Bangladesh and what can be done so that the country is more prominent as an investment destination?
Yes, Bangladesh actually geographical location is fantastic. It is linked with 4, 5, 6 nations. Particularly, it is good to have a good emerging giants like China and India. So Bangladesh is important to both countries. That is a good side. Recently, we have bad relations with Myanmar for their pushing their refugees. So, but other than that, Bangladesh is at the junction point of East Asia and South Asia. So that is a good thing. Another thing, we have demographic dividend. Young generation, huge young generation, they like to take new products, new goods. So business opportunities are huge for 2 reasons: connectivity and demographic dividend. These 2 things are very much sustainable for another 2. I think geography will never be changed, but the demographic dividend will stay for another 25 years. So this is a great sign. And growth rate is high, means whenever you want to do business, you don't want to go to a country where a growth rate is negative or 1 or 2%. Growth rate is high means return on your investment must be high. Rate of return is high. So as long as rate of return is high, you can borrow from overseas market and invest in Bangladesh and earn a profit. That's the news of opportunity.
Maybe one last question because time is running out.
Yeah, sure. So something very that I saw Bangladesh was really forward to its women, right? So having women in power, having women in society, educating women. They believe that having women is really at the end it's an asset, right? And that's why the growth rate at 7.1% it's also being part of it. Can you just talk a little bit about how Bangladesh, from all other countries, is really pushing forward to really having women as the future and empowerment for businesses and banks.
Actually, women empowerment takes place by top policy makers. They have to have the willingness. In Bangladesh, we have already gotten that background because our prime minister, since early 90s, is called New Era of Democratization. Women are always in power, so that changed many things. At the same time, Bangladesh flourished in garments, and garments are 80% dependent on female workers. So they got money, and when women got money, they have power. They have social changes. They like goods, products, and businesses. So that is happening automatically. But main focus should be given toward diversification, not only garments. And that is happening because the current prime minister is taking women general, women major general, army, police, everywhere. So it is a huge recruitment. And recently you'll be surprised that girls are doing better results than boys. So I'm very hopeful about particularly the women empowerment in Bangladesh. And it is also part of our culture. It's a very secular culture. Unlike other fanatic countries, we allow women to go out to do, and as part of culture, dance, music, drama, school, life, everything. We don't have any hesitation or superstitions that women should be at home.
One more last
Sure.
question.
Yeah.
Do we have time, Pradeep?
So you mentioned a little bit about how influential the garment is for the country when it comes to exports. Can you tell me a little bit about maybe some other opportunities that the country has in order to expand its exports into maybe other industries?
Yeah, exports, we have other opportunities like footwear, because Bangladesh has a lot of the leather from cow, because the dominant religion is Islam, so they breed cows and then they slaughter. So we have, it's a very cheap leather and cheap labor also, workers. And in footwear, Bangladesh is the second largest also textile, and also supplying groceries, vegetable, food, and Bangladesh is fourth largest country in the world to export, to produce fish. So fish is a lot. It's a country of thousands of rivers, and every inch is very fertile. So agricultural products, agro-based products. So I see huge, and also IT, very important, because our Prime Minister has announced one policy called Digital Bangladesh. So it's not that digital like developed economics, but her passion pushing people into. So, and Bangladesh has started exporting software and also support center like outsourcing, call centers. It is gradually taking place in Bangladesh, which is easy rather than if you go for China, they have language barrier, but because of British colonial rule, Bangladeshi people, girls and boys, they like to speak English. So I see a lot of opportunities, particularly in the export sector.
Just one last question before we finish off. We've seen historically that education plays a huge role in driving the economy of a country. Could you speak a little bit about the environment of education in Bangladesh and how it's growing? Or is the demographic moving internationally and then not coming back to Bangladesh? Is that one of the reasons why it's not as expected a growth as it should be?
Oh, actually, it's a good question in sense that Bangladeshi people are moving outside, but not coming back as they are doing for China or India. It happens at the stage of the development, because Indian per capita income is higher than ours. So gradually, when we'll have modern facilities, housing, people will go back. That is one thing. And also, it is the most densely populated country. So at this moment, probably people want, okay, if they go outside, that saves environment, and to some extent they can. Now I can contribute to my country in ideas, thoughts. It's a global age with internet and everything. So people are outside, like 10 million people are outside from Bangladesh, almost 15, but still they are contributing indirectly. So in Middle East and other places. So I would think it is not the government's policy, but gradually when we will see better institutions, um, it will automatically attract young generation to come back and contribute.
So one last closing remark. So you have mentioned industries to where to invest in Bangladesh, garments, IT, agriculture actually, also very fertile land, as you said, fish farms probably also very interesting. How do you see the future? So looking forward, what is next for Bangladesh? Will continue to grow. A recent McKinsey study shows Bangladesh as one of the highest countries and more stable, high growth countries in the world. So is this for the future or some clouds?
Yeah, I see some clouds though, but because only growth is not the answer to the economy. Growth can give you development, but if you can distribute growth among all, that is why the recent government slogan is not only growth, it's called inclusive growth. So we have to reduce income inequality. It is rising fast, and it happens. Also look at communist China, that's the income inequality rising. So I see the challenges of income inequality redistribution, grabbing more revenue by the government. Government tax GDP ratio is one of the lowest. I don't know how they are managing it, but it should be 10%. It should be around 20% gradually. So these things are challenging. Giving more freedom to all institutions like education institutions, and reducing the pressure of politicization, like in recruitment and all other stuff. This is, of course, a developing world problem. These things, if these things are done, Bangladesh's growth is one of the most stable in the world. It is not jumping up. It is just going stable, high. And also, the last thing I want to add, that government's vision, like the leader now has, okay, Bangladesh has recently graduated to middle income economy. Now they are targeting to be upper middle income by the end of 2030, and by 2041 developed country. I believe by 2041 Bangladesh will never be a developed country because of arithmetic doesn't support that. But I believe it will be around that zone in 2050, and also price PwC also predicts that Bangladesh will exceed big economies like Australia, Netherlands, some of the economies. So I am very hopeful. If the regime and the government can dictate a country toward the right in the right direction, a country can prosper very fast. So leadership is the main thing, and if that leadership stays there, Bangladesh will be a prosperous country.
So let's finish in this very positive note, leadership. So we have here young leaders of the future. It's up to you to continue this great work, not only in Bangladesh, but in all over the world. We need more leaders, and as you say, leadership is key for any. You can have the best policy, but if the management, business level, political level is not good, then nothing happens. So thank you very much for bringing light about this country that actually we don't know and is not as present as it should in our discussions when we talk about emerging markets, and looking forward to keeping in touch and continuing learning more about Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you.